Have you ever found yourself scrolling and just wondering, why that video? Why did that random clip explode with millions of views while so much other great stuff just vanishes? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain and decode the actual science behind why we hit that share button. Let's get into it.
First off, let's just wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this. 73% of adults in the US are on YouTube, and that's just one platform. We are literally swimming in an endless ocean of content, and the tide is always rising.
So that leads us to the billion-dollar question, right? In that infinite scroll, what actually makes you stop? What is it about one post, one video that manages to cut through all that noise and grab the attention of, well, basically everyone?
Now, it's easy to think it's all just random, a complete lottery. But it turns out it's not. New research shows that going viral is actually the result of a very specific and surprisingly predictable process that happens inside our brains. And today, we're going to break down that exact process for you.
So let's start with how this whole thing actually works, because our old ways of thinking about sharing are, well, they're obsolete. The game has totally changed.
See, the old models were really simple, almost too simple. They were built for the age of email. You get something, read it, and make a single choice, forward or don't. But that's not how we live now, is it? We're in a dynamic world. The new model understands that our decision-making is super fast, it's flexible, and we can even change our minds partway through an article or video.
And this new understanding is all wrapped up in what's called the two-stage dynamic model. It's basically a map of the lightning-fast mental journey you take every single time you see something in your feed. It's not a straight line, it's a super rapid evaluation.
And it all boils down to two critical moments. Stage one is the filter. This happens in a fraction of a second. Your brain sees a post and decides, accept, meaning I'll stop and look, or reject, and you just keep on scrolling. If you accept, you enter stage two, the choice. Now that you've watched it or read it, you make another split-second decision. Do I interact with this, like, comment, share, or do I just move on?
So, what pushes us one way or the other in those two moments? Well, it turns out there's a recipe. It has three key ingredients, and these are the psychological triggers that decide whether a piece of content gets ignored or becomes a global phenomenon.
Here they are. You've got framework conditions, that's all about the packaging. Then there's the content, the actual substance. And finally, interaction aims, which is your personal motive for sharing. And as you can see, they all play a pretty equal part. So let's dive into each one.
First up, framework conditions. Now, this is everything around the content. We're not even talking about the video or the article itself yet. This is the headline, the thumbnail, who shared it with you. Think of it as the cover of the book, not the story inside.
And you absolutely cannot underestimate the power of that cover. Get this. A study found that a whopping 6 out of 10 people share links based on the headline alone. They never even click to read the article. That's how critical this first ingredient is, especially in that initial filter stage.
So what makes a headline actually work? Well, it's all about sparking curiosity. Things like using pronouns, this is why, that create a little mystery. Signal words like how or why also pull us in. The trick, though, is to be compelling without being deceptive. If you use clickbait that doesn't deliver, you just end up frustrating people and losing their trust.
Okay, so let's say the framework did its job. You clicked, you're in. Now we're at our second ingredient, the content. This is the heart of it all, the story, the video, and maybe most importantly, how it makes you feel.
Because when it comes to sharing, emotion is king. But, and this is a big but, not all emotions are created equal. The key factor is something called activation. Does the feeling make you want to do something? So high activation emotions like awe, excitement, or humor, huge drivers for sharing. But what's really interesting is that high activation negative emotions like anger or anxiety are also incredibly powerful. It's the low activation feelings like sadness that just don't inspire us to act.
And the data on this is crystal clear. Content that sparks those high activation positive emotions, that sense of awe or excitement, gets shared up to 30% more. That's a massive difference.
All right, time for our third and final ingredient, and this one is the most personal. Interaction aims. This digs deep into the subconscious stuff. It asks the question, why are you really sharing this? What's the hidden need you're trying to satisfy? And researchers have boiled it down to 5 main drivers. Sometimes it's about managing our impression. We want to look smart or funny or in the know. Other times it's about regulating our own emotions, a way to vent our frustration or share our joy.
We also share to get advice, to connect with our tribe, or even to try and persuade people to see things our way. Every single share is serving one of these deeper goals.
Okay, so we've got our 2 stages and our 3 ingredients. But why is any of this important? What's the big takeaway? Well, it's all about moving beyond just chasing clicks and views, and instead creating something of real value.
For anyone creating content out there, the real goal isn't just going viral. It's achieving what's called valuable virality. This is when your message doesn't just spread everywhere, but it spreads with the correct meaning and feeling attached to it. It's when your brand or your idea is so perfectly woven into an emotional story that people share the feeling and your message goes right along with it.
So, let's do a quick recap of our recipe. The framework? That's the cover of the book. It's got to make you want to pick it up. The content is the story inside. It has to make you feel something powerful. And your interaction aims? That's your personal reason for telling all your friends they absolutely have to read this book. You need all 3 working in perfect harmony.
So, the next time you're scrolling and your thumb is hovering over that share button, just pause for a second. Ask yourself, which of these ingredients are at play here? What emotion am I feeling? And what deep down motive is driving this decision? Because now that you know the science, I promise you will never look at your feed the same way again.